So we're underway here in our semifinals. On the left, we got Jonathan Wright. He's playing Esper control like he always does. And his opponent is Joe Lewis, who we saw earlier tonight. He's recently had success with a black-white mid-range deck. But this week, he's eschewing that build. He's added some green and is playing junk mid-range. We saw earlier tonight his mana base is very greedy, but there are a lot of good cards in this deck. Turn 2 Thoughtseize off a Temple of Malady, showing 3 lands, 2 dissolves, and an Aetherling. So Joe with the turn 2 Scavenging is playing that into a dissolve that we know about. Just a matter of whether or not Jonathan has drawn a removal spell. In the meantime, he has not. So he does choose to dissolve, leaves a card on top. Joe passes the turn. So Jonathan scries with the Temple of Silence. Much to Joe's delight, he does shove a card to the bottom. Joe follows up with a Pack Rat. We talked about this earlier. It seems like I think a card with some more playtesting. I'm pretty sure Joe just built this deck today before FNM. I'm sure with some more playtesting, that Pack Rat's probably not as good in this deck as it is in the mono black deck. We talked about it earlier at length, but not a lot of cards in this chunk list from Joe that he's necessarily going to want to pitch. I'll apologize, we are getting a little bit loud out there, as I think some guys are firing up another conspiracy draft right next to us here. So Pack Rat comes in, no activation, and then Jonathan takes the turn back here. He's got another dissolve in his hand we already know about from a dissolve. So Joe activates his Pack Rat, serves in for 4. So Verdict clears the board out, and Jonathan passes the turn back. Joe with no permanents on board. Jonathan still has that dissolve up that we know about. There's a Courser. Does Jonathan want to fight over that or not? He decides to let it stick. The top of the deck shows the Sylvan Caryatid, so Joe just passes the turn back. It's an interesting dilemma there for Jonathan, as the dissolve makes sense there. You use your mana adequately. The Courser does give Joe pseudo card advantage, or at least the potential for that. But there are some cards in Joe's deck, like Obsidat, that become incredibly important to counter. I'm not sure if Jonathan just drew that D-Sphere or not, but it's a much better answer to the Courser than the counterspell. So Joe draws the Caryatid that we know about, and there's a Desecration Demon, that likely going to meet the other dissolve, unless Jonathan has another removal spell, in which case he can afford to sandbag that counter magic even further into the game. So Jonathan does eventually decide to dissolve the demon. So Joe left with just the mana producer. Jonathan fires off an Elspeth. Not as game ending in this matchup as in other ones, as Joe's deck is a Hero's Downfall deck, so very likely that this Elspeth is not long for this world. The fact that Joe has not immediately slammed the Hero's Downfall suggests he might not have it. So there's an Underworld Connections on a Temple Guard. He's going to go ahead and draw a card. Oh, stand corrected. He either just drew the Hero's Downfall or he was sandbagging it the whole time. But Elspeth is down. Jonathan's going to rebuild here. One Elspeth in the bin. His Aetherling is in the bin. So he's going to struggle to find another win condition here. There's a Jace. Theoretically, that will do it. Going to -2, revealing Azorius Charm, D-Sphere, and Ultimate Price. Jonathan likely to take the D-Sphere. That's an answer to the Underworld Connections. He's going to serve in for 3 here, knocking Joe down to 12. And D-Sphere on the Underworld Connection, so Joe again left with just a wall that makes mana and a bunch of lands. Two mana for another Pack Rat, which at this stage of the game is pretty good, as Joe can turn all of his bad top decks into Pack Rat tokens. And Jonathan not in a position where a Supreme Verdict would necessarily be all that favorable. So Jonathan serves in with his 3 tokens. One gets blocked by the Caryatid. Puts Joe down to 10. Jonathan has difficulty operating the large dice. And there's a verdict to clear the board. Tick Jace up. And end of turn, Hero's Downfall on Jace, or almost reset the entire game. Joe hellbent. No permanents on board. Draws likely a land or another reactive spell. Jonathan's going to shock himself, which is the universal symbol of I have drawn Sphinx's Revelation. Joe's going to scry with the Temple of Silence, leave it on top, and there is the rev that we all knew was coming. It'll be for 5, putting Jonathan back up to 16, more importantly drawing him 5 cards. And the only thing better than Ancestral Recall is Ancestral plus 2 more cards. So Jonathan looking for a way to win this game. He's ground Joe down to virtually nothing. Looks like a Jace. So here is a Jace, Architect of Thought. Joe slowly running out, or quickly running out of Hero's Downfalls. Mutavaults or Temple of Silence. So Mutavault versus Scry effect. Jonathan chooses the land. He plays the land. I'm going to pass the turn back here. So there is a Scavenging Ooze off the top. That's going to meet a Doomblade. Jonathan likely going to cycle an Azorius Charm into turn here too. And Joe has had enough. Very unlikely for him to come back from that position. Sure, Jonathan had him only on a 5-turn clock with that Mutavault, but sometimes you just know when it's not meant to be. Hey, it might be meant for you if you want to win these cards. They're a playset of Rock, Paper, Scissors from Unglued. Are they worth a lot of money? No, but are they awesome to have? Absolutely. And I will send a set to you if you win our giveaway. How can you enter? It's very simple. You go over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/ZachSalesMagic. First things first, you like the page. That gets you qualified for our drawing. Then you look for the most recent posts about the giveaway. You like, comment, or share that post 3 separate ways to get 3 separate entries into this week's drawing. So do all of that to increase your chances. Then you head over to our Twitter account at ZachSalesMagic. Follow me. That's step number 1. Then retweet that to all your friends. And that will get you entered. So 4 different ways you can enter, 4 separate entries you can earn this week. And after the weekend, I'll go ahead and draw the winner and send somebody this lucky play set of cards, along with one of my patented business cards about the stream. And you can be the envy of all of your friends at your local game store as you start all of your games the way we start all of ours, with a delightful game of rock, paper, scissors. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Alright, so game 2 underway here. Joe Lewis, he's down a game. He got ground down by Jonathan Wright's Esper controlled deck in game number 1. And here in game number 2, he tries to fight back with his junk mid-range deck, but the start of Godless Shrine into Mutavault, not necessarily a good sign for Joe's mana base. We know his deck is very greedy, but he does draw, looks like a Temple of Plenty off the top. Should be pretty good here. He's also got a Thoughtseize, it looks like, so we're going to lead off with that. Revealing Hallowed Fountain, 2 Watery Graves, Dissolve, Sphinx's Rev, D-Sphere, and Dark Betrayal. Interesting. Interesting. We have sideboarded in some number of Dark Betrayal. Of course, Joe is playing Desecration Demons and Pack Rats, so it seems like a reasonable card to play. So Joe scries with a Temple of Plenty, then sends a turn back. Jonathan content to play a land tap. Let's see what Joe can resolve here. Shields are down. We see lands and heroes downfall in his hand. He's going to shock himself. Fire off a Courser of Crufix. Let's see what's on the top of his deck. It's another Thoughtseize. Not sure how many Thoughtseizes Joe plays in the main, but I'm sure all 4 of them are in his deck in the sideboarded games against Control. They're going to do a lot of work here. And that Courser potentially can do a lot of work in terms of card advantage if it goes left unanswered. Can't Dark Betrayal that. That's for sure. So Jonathan D-Spheres the Courser. Likely because he knows he's going to lose that D-Sphere to a Thoughtseize, so he might as well get some value out of it now. Joe serves in with his Mutavault, and I believe he has a sideboarded Golgari Charm in his hand, which will answer that D-Sphere. I think he's going to try and do that at end of turn. So if there's counter magic here, oh, I apologize, it's an Abrupt Decay. I believe he still has Golgari Charm, but I'm not 100% positive. So here's the interesting part of the game. Because Joe did something at the end of turn, so here's the Thoughtseize we know about. Let's see what it clears out. So Rev, Verdict. Rev, Dark Betrayal, Godless Shrine. So Jonathan not casting a Rev because he's got 2 of them, so no need to get rid of one of them. So Joe has some choices here. The Revs will eventually beat him, but the Verdict may be something he can't deal with currently. So Joe goes for the more long game approach here. Taking out one of the Revs denying Jonathan the ability to gain even more card advantage. Temple of Silence off the top, revealing another Temple of Silence. Joe's going to leave that one there. His hand is Underworld Connections, Hero's Downfall, Golgari Charm. Nope, Joe's going to shove the Temple, revealing another Corsair. Activate Mutavault, get in there for 4. Joe knows the path is clear, so down to 14. Jonathan goes and he's going to rev for 2 and put him up to 16. More importantly, draw a couple more cards here, try to find a solution. So Jonathan just plays the Goblet Shrine we knew about. Taps, Joe reveals yet another Thoughtseize on the top of his deck. Another Corsair coming. Joe does know. Excuse me, guys. Joe does know about the Corsair of Crufix in Jonathan's hand, so he might consider holding that so as not to play into the potential blowout from the Supreme Verdict. So Jonathan draws for his turn. He draws a Thoughtseize. He's going to drop down to 10 here. Let's see what Joe has in response here. He's got some instant speed shenanigans he can cast here. I think Jonathan's going to choose to take the Underworld Connections. I think Joe is considering Golgari Charm regenerating his creature. That's probably unwise. Because I think if Jonathan takes the charm, I think you're probably winning long term here. So there's his hand. It's what we expected. Golgari Charm, 2 Heroes Downfalls, Corsair, and Underworld Connections. So if you're Jonathan here, what do you take? The Corsair you can answer with the Verdict. The Golgari Charm turns your Verdict off. 2 Heroes Downfalls are redundant, so taking one likely not as important as taking another. So it's between Connections, which will give Joe the card advantage he needs to draw out of the situation, and the Golgari Charm, which effectively blanks your removal spell. If Jonathan doesn't take Golgari Charm, he's going to have to make Joe tap out or have 7 mana to Verdict with Dissolve backup. And Joe was just a smart enough player to never play into that scenario. He's never going to tap low enough that Charm isn't available. He'll just continue to beat Jonathan for 4 turns with the Corsair and the Mutavault. Wow, and Jonathan just choose the Underworld Connections after a lot of thought there. Jonathan just passes back, misses a land drop. So we draw a Thoughtseize. We play the Overgrown Tomb untapped, revealing a swamp on the top. And now things become difficult for Joe as this Thoughtseize. Well, I guess he's in the same spot. Thoughtseize is kind of obliged to take a Supreme Verdict at this point. And the Golgari Charm in his hand will effectively blank the other one. sees he takes one of the verdicts. His Dark Betrayal seemed like an awkward sideboard decision from Jonathan at this point, as he has now gathered a second copy, which is doing nothing, same as the first. So Joe serves in for 4 and drops Jonathan down to 6. Jonathan draws for his turn. I do not know what it was. Jonathan likely obliged to cast the D-Sphere on the Courser at this point. Let's go to Scribe first to get some information. That one looks like a thinker, but relatively quickly goes to the bottom. Golgari Charm can answer the D-Sphere, but then we just trade D-Sphere for Charm instead of Verdict for Charm. Joe not going to charm it in a turn there. Joe needs to, attacks in with the Mutavault first. That'll put Jonathan to 4 on a 2-turn clock. Now we can play our second Courser. For some reason playing our land first before playing the second Courser. I guess he specifically needs that kind of mana. There's a land on top. Not sure about the order of operations there, but we'll see if it comes back to bite Joe. There's a Verdict. Golgari Charm. Regenerating creatures, and that's going to be good enough. The Courser plus the Mutavault. Exactly lethal, so we move to game number 3. Joe. Alright guys, so it's the decider here. Jonathan succumbing to some discard and some Courser and Mutavault beatdowns in game number 2. He's on the play here. He's on a mull to 6. Here's a turn 2 Thoughtseize revealing Godless Shrine, Courser of Crufix, Hero's Downfall, Golgari Charm, Mutavault, Blood Baron, and Overgrown Tomb. What do you take here? I don't think Blood Baron's too much of a concern. Golgari Charm is awkward, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Courser is annoying. I don't know if it warrants immediate removal here either. I guess it depends on what's in Jonathan's hand, which conveniently we do not see. So he's going to take the Blood Baron, which, depending on what removal suite Jonathan draws, may be difficult for him to deal with. Subsequent to the Thoughtseize, he plays a Temple of Enlightenment, and after much debate, puts the card on the bottom. So both players can tend to play draw go. Here is a Courser of Crufix that we knew about, revealing a Thoughtseize on top. So things getting worse for Jonathan here. Looks like he draws a Jace. Does he have the 4th land untapped to land the Jace? Jace also going to eat a Hero's Downfall more than likely, even after it resolves. It's an awkward situation too with the Courser on board. Jonathan plays the Jace, he's obliged to tick it up, so Joe has to use the Hero's Downfall, because if he -2s, he'll draw some cards, but the Courser will be able to finish the Planeswalker off. Then Joe still gets to sit back on that Hero's Downfall. So Jonathan choosing instead to run out the Jace. He knows it's going to die next turn, but he's fine with that. The choice is Rev versus D-Sphere and Doomblade. I think if I'm Jonathan, I take the... Whoops. I would have taken the other pile, but Jonathan, a better control pilot than I am, he takes the Sphinx's Rev. Thoughtseize drawn. Another Thoughtseize on top. Joe drawing 5 Thoughtseize across the 2 sideboarded games here. So Courser cleans up Jace. The Thoughtseize takes either Elspeth or 2 Sphinx's Revs. I think you take, in this case, you probably take the Elspeth. No, he's going to take the other Sphinx's Rev, which means at this point Jonathan's obliged to cast the Sphinx's Rev in response to the Thoughtseize that's going to come next turn. Joe shocks himself, leaving up Hero's Downfall, using his life as a resource. It's very unlikely that that 2 life is going to come back to haunt him at any point against the control deck. In this way, he leaves up Hero's Downfall mana. So Jonathan draws for turn. Looks like it's a Godless Shrine that he drew. He just passes the turn back. Oh my goodness. Joe running very good. Now drawing 6 Thoughtseize across 2 sideboarded games against Jonathan. Courser continues to beat in, providing a clock, a slow yet dependable clock. There's the Thoughtseize. Do we rev in response? Yes, we do rev in response. So go back up to 16, draw 2 fresh cards off the top. Thoughtseize is likely going to take the Elspeth. Jonathan reveals a Deicide, 2 Temples of Deceit. Nope, Deicide hits the bin as it is a removal spell for the Courser, as it is an enchantment. Then Joe places Mana Confluence, all the while gaining life off of all these land drops. So the Courser beatdown continues. Jonathan debating this scry off the blue-black temple. He's drawn a verdict. Just going to trade with the Golgari Charm. Fighting very hard over this Courser Crufix. Joe draws a Thoughtseize, reveals a Mutavault. So 3 Thoughtseize and a Mutavault off the top for Joe. The best card you can draw in this matchup. There's an Elspeth. That's also a good one. Mutavault and Courser come in, knocking Jonathan down to 12 here. Joe just passes back. In the driver's seat, Elspeth on its way. Let's see what's on the top for Jonathan. He left this on here from the temple, so he knows what he's drawing. So Jonathan thinking a lot here. 6 mana for an Elspeth. If nothing else, it's going to make 3 tokens, then going to meet a Hero's Downfall. So a very expensive, it's like Spectral Procession if you don't have any white mana. That's what Jonathan just cast, except his dudes don't fly. So Overgrown Tomb off the top for Joe. He's going to shock himself. Only lose 1 off the net effect of the Courser trigger, and the Shockland penalty. There's the other Thoughtseize. It gets a D-sphere. Courser serves in. Jonathan's just going to take the 1, or the 2 I should say, drops down to 10. And there's the Elspeth. Make 3 tokens. What does Jonathan find on the top of his deck? And D-sphere is literally the best thing that he could come up with, as it will answer the Elspeth immediately. It does buy him some time. He's still in a world of hurt here, but that does buy him some time. So activating both of Joe's Mutavaults. He's going to serve in with everybody here. Johnson likely going to trade with a token and a Mutavault. If Joe has drawn a Golgari Charm, this is going to be a brutal blowout. But if he's drawn a Golgari Charm, he's more likely going to use it on the D-sphere anyway, so... So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gets through, drops Jonathan down to 4. And this one looks all over but the shouting, as Jonathan's going to have to answer this tokens and the Courser. But Joe still has a Mutavault in reserve as well. There's Abrupt Decay on the Elspeth, makes 3 more tokens, and now Jonathan is well and proper dead. There's a Deicide. Too little too late. Joe riding a seemingly endless string of Thoughtseize to the win. I'll settle. No, it's fine. No problem. Scotty's not feeling good. But yes, so Nick Reed and Jun Monsters took out Scotty Wright's Esper control deck, so both Wright brothers make it to this top 4. Both Wright brothers fall. Joe and Nick decided to chop, so that's the end of our stream. But remember, guys, we'll be back here next Friday, assuming you don't go to Origins, for more Standard. And then if you are in the greater Fort Wayne, Indiana area on Sunday, you can come out and see me and the folks from AffinityForCards.com at the Fort Wayne PTQ. That, of course, is on Sunday. That's Modern. Should be a lot of fun. Hope to see some of you there. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. And remember, we've got our giveaway going on, so go over to Facebook, facebook.com/ZachSellsMagic, or Twitter, twitter.com/ZachSellsMagic. Look for this picture. There's instructions on how you can win those cards. Get your entries in. Probably going to draw for that next Wednesday sometime, give or take in the middle of the week. I appreciate you guys watching. I had really good numbers tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. So from all the folks here at Lost Legion, have yourselves a good weekend. We hope to see you back here next week. Take care, guys.